Hi, I'm Mark Richard Adams, Post-Production Specialist. Come join me on Colour Me In for another post-production demonstration. Hi and welcome back. Today we're going to look at Avid and the colour correction tool in Avid. It's been updated quite heftily over, the 25 plus years Avid's been going. I want to show you some basic stuff, also a few little tips and tricks which you might not be aware of. On my timeline I've got a few clips, but we've got one clip here that's shot Rec709. You can see that it looks pretty much how we see things. And then we've got a clip shot log on a different camera, and that's the shot that's going to need the most work, okay, in order to match these two shots up. So our goal today is trying to match these two shots up and see what else we can do with them, okay? So in Avid, you'll see that downside we've got a bunch of tools. We've got the color correction mode. So I have the video layer one selected. I'm over this clip here, and I'm going to click on that tool now, and this will happen. So we'll be brought into this new color page, okay? We can see that we've got three monitors. We can select different modes of these monitors, but ultimately the minute we've got the previous, so we're looking at clip number 2, but this is a previous clip here, which is this one. In our current, we've got our current clip, which is the one highlighted with the blue line. This particular clip is the one that we can color correct. And then in the third window, I've actually selected it to be on the waveform monitor actually, which is quite helpful at the moment. I could select that to be the next clip if I wanted to, but that's not particularly useful for me. What is really useful is the vector scope and waveform. Vector scope, of course, looking at the amount of color within the image, and the Y waveform, looking at the luminance, the lights in the image. So what do we have? We've got various things. We've got CC color effect. This should be selected because this dictates that which clip that you're on. We are a color correction effect on this clip. You can actually set the color correction to go across multiple things, but I don't want to do that. I just want to go with that clip. What do we have in here? We've got the hue, saturation, and luma. We've got the levels tab. We've got the curves tab and the secondaries tab. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of these today, but I'll just go through some of the basic ones. We've got controls tab, so we've got all the meaty tools here. Hue offsets, we've got luma ranges, highlights, midtone, shadows. A lot of this stuff you're not really going to be using. If you were to be using like really in-depth color corrections with Avid, you wouldn't. You'd be doing it in Resolve or Baselight, more than likely Resolve. Avid is good. You can do a sort of an in-depth color pass on Avid pretty well. But I would advise you personally to do it on Resolve. Okay, so let's have a look. I'm just going to jump through to the curves, and this is where I would start anything, and I'd certainly would start on Resolve in the curves as well. And you can see that we've got RGB channels here, so we can actually add in red, take away, add in green, take away, add in blue, take away, and we've got the master channel here too. Now, if we look at the waveform at the minute, we've got an image which is pretty thin. This is how this shot would have been recorded via log. So all the information is within this shot. Nothing's been burnt out, nothing's been lost. All the information is there. We just need to stretch it out so it comes back to almost a Rec709 color space world. So the way that I would do that is I would keep, I would look at the master. So top right hand corner, this is your peak whites, and bottom left, your peak blacks. We want to bear in mind this 16 line here and this 235 line here. The way that it would work is think of the 16 as peak black and the 235 as peak white. In Resolve it's different, it's 0 and 100, okay? So what I want to do is try and get this bottom black line as close to this line as I can, but without the image breaking up too much, because bear in mind you color correct with the scope, but you also color correct with the eye. So I'm just going to drag that down, and you'll see that it's coming closer to that 16 line now. That's fine. And now I need to also pull the whites up. So this image is stretching out nicely. Let's see how far I can go without it looking a bit crazy. That's too much. You can see in these areas here, we've got green, and the whites are saying that we're losing information here, and we've we possibly might be burning out. So I'm just going to pull those back, and I'm just going to get that image around about there. We're just going to need to amend the black line again, sort of crept up on us. Okay, so that's always going to be my first colour pass in Avid, or certainly in Resolve. This is the way that I would do it. Okay, so what else can we do? Now we've got a couple of other things. We've got master gain, master gamma, master setup, and saturation. I'm not going to use all of these, but I am going to use the saturation. I'm going to increase the saturation to 120. I can add that figure in, or I could use this lever to push it in and reduce as well. Looking okay, but looking a bit pink. What else do we have? Master gain, I might just bring the gain up by 10%. Okay, and you can see, because I've done that, the whole image is stepped up. Has it helped? Not really, no. I'm going to bring it back down. Okay. I'm not going to mess with anything else here. Now, if we jump across to the Hue, Saturation and Luminance tab, now we've got a few more detailed tabs here. Now, I do want to increase the contrast, so I'm just going to put 10% on the contrast. Way too much there. Okay, let's drop it down to 4. Still too much. I'm going to drop it to 2. Okay, so the contrast is maneuvering the lights and darks away from each other or towards each other. I just wanted to make it a little bit crunchier. Bear in mind that we're still looking okay. Nothing's going beyond that 16 line here with the peak black. But overall, I do think the image needs to be slightly brighter, so I'm going to increase the gain by 10%. Maybe not that much. Okay. Okay, so that's not too bad. Now, this little box over here, the dual split, we can click on that, and this will show us what the image was. Your original image against your color correction image. So we can see there's a big difference there, okay? Maybe it's a little bit rich, probably a little bit too pink. We could just double check that by going to the waveform and going to the vector scope and just having a look. So you've got these boxes here. You've got red, magenta, blue, cyan, green, and yellow here. Okay, and wherever these colours push out to, or where, the further they go out towards these boxes, the richer the colour is going to be. And if you imagine just a line between these boxes here, just a straight line, anything that goes beyond the lines between these boxes is an illegal colour, essentially. At the minute, yeah, we've got a little big push towards the reds, which is going to be his face here. We probably need to amend that. I'm just going to jump into the HLS and the Hue Offsets, and I want to play around with the midtones on his skin. And the way that I would do that, I'm going to go to the mids, and I'm going to pull away from the reds, and I'm going to pull into the blue area. Now you can see that's way too much, so a little goes a long way, so let's just pull it back slightly. So what I'm actually doing is I'm actually going the opposite way. So if you want to remove a color, go the opposite way. So theoretically directly opposite. So the colors around about here in his face, just pull it directly opposite. And actually what we're doing is we're not only are we adding in blue, but we're actually removing this pink reddy color here. So looking pretty good. I'm sort of happy with that. If you didn't like that, for example, if you wanted to do something and it went wrong, so let's say on our shadows I wanted to increase the blues, and go, oh, whoa, that's gone way too far. If you hit Option and click on the little blue box, double click, that'll reset it, and that'll reset anything. So let's say if I went to master and I pushed the master out, everything's gone red here. Now that's too much. The master, of course, is a combination of all three, so it's actually changing everything within the image. If you click on the little blue box here, hold down the Option key, double click, that'll reset it. Okay, so that's not too bad. I quite like that. What I want to do now, though, is just have a look at a secondary part of the image. Now, in this image, you can see I've got this computer monitor. Let's change this computer monitor slightly. And we can do that by adding almost like a secondary shape. And over here, you'll see the shapes. You've got base here. Now, base is your image, the full image here, just this image that I've just amended. And if you hit shape, you'll see that everything will reset. It'll reset to a new sort of target. essentially. So it means that we can now place a shape on top of this image that we've color corrected. So if I go to shapes here and I hit this tool here, I'm just going to draw around this monitor, and that's now created that shape. What's really good is if you hit this tool, we can actually see the matte of that, and we can increase the softness of that matte or reduce the softness of that matte too. Okay, go back to shapes and turn the matte off, and we can now amend it. So make sure the shape box is selected, and I'm going to increase the gain in there by about 10%. You can see that increased, and I'm going to increase it a little bit more to 120%. Good. So now we have a interview setup with the monitor highlighted. We can also add a track to that too. So you could go over and hit shapes, hit the tracking button, and select a part of the image to track, and then use the tracking tool here. So it's actually really handy. Not only can we create a secondary color correction or change a portion of an image, we can also, if the image is moving, we can track it too. Obviously, this image isn't really moving that much, so the track wouldn't necessarily help, but sometimes there can be little wobbles on cameras, certainly on interview setups. So I'm going to hit stop there. Good. Now, we have our corrected image looking good, and we can just go on the split screen again and see the difference. It's quite a big difference there. You know, that's a pretty powerful, quick color correction in the space of time that we had. Now I want to jump into this clip, and I want to match the two. So if I'm going to jump onto this clip, I am going to refresh this and just go back into the color mode again. Okay, we're now into this clip, and bear in mind that I do need to see the clip that we used beforehand. So I'm just going to go to next, and on the previous I can now use this monitor for the waveform. Good. So there you see, we see the difference. It's quite a big difference between the two. Now, one of the ways that we could try and alter this image is by using the match color tool. So at the moment the walls are very different in color. So let's try and match those colors if we can. And the way that I'm going to do that is, and you can see we've got midtones. We can change the different elements, but generally the midtone would be a skin color, but I'm going to try and use the wall as a midtone as well, because it's not particularly that dark. Okay, so what I want to do is, in boxes you can choose where you want to match from and to. Okay, so this box on the left is basically saying select a color to be changed in the current monitor. If I select that, I want this wall to be changed. Okay, so now it's picked that color, you can see. And this box on the right is a reference. I'm going to click on that, the color picker will appear, and I'm going to use this color as the reference. Now, let's see when I hit match color. Not a huge difference, not a huge difference. This isn't always going to work, but you know, there you go. Let's try a different way. We are going to try and match these manually. And the way that I would do that, again, I'll go to curves, and I need to drop this image slightly. So the one on the right is a little bit darker. I'm going to draw on the waveform. So we might need to raise it slightly. Yep, okay, we're looking good. I want to go to the controls, and I want to increase the contrast to about 4, and I'm going to go to the midtones. Now the midtones are quite powerful, and you can see the midtones over here a little bit ruddier but whiter, and then we've got orangier midtones here. So I'm actually going to pull away from the orange midtones. Okay, I'm going to pull away until I get something that is similar. Now his shirt is looking similar, his skin tone is looking similar here. The only major difference is the wall. The wall is still looking too bright. So what we might need to do is reduce the overall image. Okay, so I could bring the overall image of this down, and we could bring the gamma down too. These tools are very, very, very tricky to manipulate. Sometimes it's better to have a grading panel. So we're getting closer, aren't we? We're getting closer, and I think the saturation actually on this shot is too much too. So we're actually going to bring that down. I'm going to bring it down to 90. Yeah, looking better, and the wall's coming in now. What I might do now is jump over to the Hue Offsets and looking at the shadows. Now the shadow wheel, of course, is going to be looking at the dark parts of the image. So it's going to be looking at the speakers here, the monitor, a little bit of the wall. So if I'm very careful, what I might be able to do is actually increase more blues into that area of the image, more dark blues, to get us slightly closer to the image that we want. Getting closer. Still got some brightness on the top of his head. It could very well be that we need to reduce the curves. So if we're going to curves, and I'm going to drop the curves down very slightly. Maybe I'll just pick up a little bit in the midsection there to raise the bottom ends whites. So let's have a look what it was previously. Okay, big difference, big difference. Yellower, you know, quite clearly in a room with tungsten lights, not happy at all. But I think overall those two are matching relatively well, considering just for this test. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that video. In conclusion, we've seen how to amend one image from log, apply secondary color correction tracked on the monitor, and also then manually by eye, actually by waveform, match the colors of a secondary camera. You will generally have to match that via eye, via waveform, rather than hoping that Avid or another application has a magic match tool. Phonic Pro 10 does, Resolve sort of does. It doesn't always work though. It's really dependent on how the image has been shot in the first place. You know, if you're trying to match a log clip against a Rec709 clip with a magic match, it's never going to work. It just won't. Okay, the images have to be both the same. They both have to be Rec709. They both have to be in the relatively the same lighting environment and white balanced, just to amend those smaller details. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. Take care. I'll see you next time. If you like that video, please give me a like or subscribe, or type in down below demos you'd like to see next. Catch you next time.